Welcome back once again, ladies and gents, and anything else, including aliens. It's a review for Independence Day Resurgence, which, by the way, what marketing department imbecile picked Resurgence? I mean, I don't know what is with Hollywood marketing right now, and we're going to pick some really vaguely described word that no one ever uses to be our subtitle. Especially when this is like the one time where they actually could have put The Return as the sequel title, and it would have made much more sense. But I did see Independence Day Resurgence. I think before I get into the film, I should probably talk about the original, which, by the way, this is like the first remake slash 20-year-old, see, it's a 20-year-old sequel that actually makes me feel my age, damn it. Because this is the first one for like solidly when I was a kid that is now just being, hey, remember that classic movie? We're doing it again. We're bringing it back. Kind of like how, I mean, you know, there's plenty of stuff from the 80s that technically I was alive for when it came out, but I was like 3 at the time, so it's a little different than having something like this wherein I wanted to see it in theaters. I did not. My parents at that point were the original insurgents in Independence Day were like, no, it's PG-13, you're not allowed to see it, but when it comes out of the video, we're going to buy it anyway. We're going to get it for you for Christmas when it comes out, but you're not allowed to go see it in theaters. Mind you, my parents also let me watch Alien and Predator. Like, they were, consistency was not the best. Looking back, their consistency was not the best when it came to what I was allowed to see and not see movie-wise. But I did, once it came out on video, I was allowed to like I said, they bought it for, I forget what it was for, was it Christmas or something, my birthday or something like that. And I saw it, and I enjoyed the movie growing up. I mean, it was a fun movie, and even looking back, I've seen it plenty of times since. I'm not gonna lie and say like, oh my god, this is like a piece of art, it should have won the Oscar that year. No, it's a fun movie. In many ways, it's kind of represents the height of kind of the pre-digital filmmaking. It's really kind of a watershed film. It's either, you know, it's, some people put it as either like the zenith of like the blockbusters from the 80s and the 90s, or it's the first of the new type of blockbusters from the very late 90s and into the 2000s and such. It really kind of bridges that gap. Because special effects wise, it's quite clear Roland Emmerich, even though this came out in 96, you had Jurassic Park in 93, you had a 3-year gap there, so it's pretty clear that while Emmerich, you know, just because Spielberg did something doesn't mean immediately, like 94, all of a sudden you have the CGI films. People saw what happened, saw what Spielberg did with Jurassic Park, and they were starting to explore how they could do similar special effects and kind of learning a bit. Some people jumped in and did stuff well before they were ready to. See Escape from LA for an example of that. Where, Mr. Carpenter, you do realize this was only the first set. We were supposed to come here. This was a test shot. We weren't supposed to actually insert this one into the film. But here, there's a little bit of CGI used, but for the most part, it's all puppets and it's all miniatures when it comes to the very first movie. And I'm going to come back to that when it comes to the sequel. But I enjoyed it. It is schlock. It had stupid stuff in it, yes. But it's kind of like Roland Emmerich's The Rock. It's Roland Emmerich's version of The Rock, if we're going to compare him like Michael Bay, where a lot of people don't like Michael Bay's films. A lot of people do, which is why he makes money, but normally people that are into movies do not like Michael Bay's movies. But everyone makes the exception for The Rock, what is one of his early successes, which is a fantastic film. Amazing. And like you won't find people that'll really complain about that. And even though you could see in that movie some of the stuff that's later going to become problematic, it's not a problem in that film. Same thing with the original Independence Day with Roland Emmerich. You can see some of the stuff that'll later become kind of trite when associated with him, but it's not that big of a problem in this movie. Fast forward now 20 years later, we've got one of these 20-year-old later sequels, and this movie in general, it certainly does not come up. It's not as good as the original film. And I'm not one of those people that'll automatically dismiss something because it's a 20-year later sequel. You know, I check back. I loved The Force Awakens. I probably enjoy that one more than Return of the Jedi. So personally right now that's my number 3 Star Wars film. So I'm even putting that one above some of the original trilogy films. So I'm not one of those people that automatically dismiss that. This one though is far not as good as the original. And I think a lot of it has to do. There is a longer version of this movie out there. When this comes to Blu-ray, if there is a director's cut that comes out, I'm going to suggest you get that, because I have a feeling that will fix one of the biggest problems I have with the film, which is pacing. Some stuff feels so rushed, and other stuff feels so dragged out that you get a lot of whiplash in this movie. And I have a feeling a lot of the stuff that was cut out was probably from earlier in the film. It feels like... Oopsie. I just knocked over something on my desk. Oh well. But there's a lot in this film that there are characters that are introduced that you feel like the movie is acting as if they've already been introduced in some way. And so it just leaves you going, wait, who are these people? And specifically, Judd Hirsch's character in this movie later comes across this group of kids. By the way, there's spoilers in this review. But he comes across this group of kids, and they kind of play like they're bigger side characters, but you feel like there was already a scene with these kids set up. Like you feel like you missed at least one scene with them. So I go pick up the little power cord that fell off my desk here. Oop. Yeah. Mess with that later. But they're introduced, you feel like there's a scene missing. There's later on an introduction to this people that basically serve as the clock of the movie, this salvage team, which again, it feels like we were supposed to already have been introduced to this crew. Meanwhile, the movie does that to certain people. But then there's characters like Vivica A. Fox, who's in there for 2 scenes, and you're like, why is she here? She's there just to die, but the character she's like dies to motivate. You don't really feel it too much. You could have gone without her being in. One, she's a doctor. I want to know where she earned her doctorate, where she went from stripper to doctor. Because I don't know, I forget how old she did. She did not strike me as being that young in the original, where I could see this as a person that went back to medical school and became a doctor. Unless that's just like the world was so devastated afterwards that you could get really easy training as a doctor. I don't know, but it just kind of strikes me because that was her character in the original one. She was a stripper. Like, you had to make her. I wonder if maybe she like made them make her a doctor. Because I could buy her as, not being a stripper, obviously. I could buy her going and be like having a business or something, or just plain like living in an apartment in DC because she is now the wife of the great hero of the resistance, or of humanity's war against the aliens. I can buy that the government worked out a little pension for her. They could have had a scene where she's like with the there's like a little 20-year celebration scene. They could have just stuck her in there. I don't know why they didn't make a doctor, other than to have this like sacrifice where she's got to get a baby onto a helicopter, and so her son can watch her die. But again, I'm like, why couldn't you just have her in an apartment? And you really don't feel too much for her death. One, because she's in the film so little from before, and even with her characterization previously, it feels like a waste. And as I pointed to earlier, just right before here, it feels like there's other stuff that was cut out. So you have this, you're kind of going, why wasn't this whole pointless, tiny subplot just cut from the film? And we could have got maybe some of this stuff that you just are like, I know there's been stuff cut that it would help with this pacing. Because that's another thing. Looking back at the original film, it's a very, very slow build-up. Here, the aliens show up fairly quickly. Not immediately, but it's fairly quickly. And, there was a little bit of them, the aliens coming. There was, what are we going to, talk everyone of what we're going to do. Even after the explosion scene, even after the initial destruction scene, there was a lot of quietness, or quiet moments, or the film kind of calmed back down for a while before really picking up for the finale. Here, there's just like action scene, a little too much action scene, I think, for the film, for the story the film is trying to tell. Speaking of which, I'm not going to go plot point by plot point. Basically, the aliens come back, and there's a queen, which it turns out, the aliens not only are all telepathic, I should say, but that there is, of course, a queen alien that they're all linked to. They do basically point out is not the only queen in the race. They basically say there are other, I think they call them harvester queens, because there's another AI alien that shows up. But they're coming. They picked up the distress call from the original invasion fleet, and now this comes. So this even bigger mothership comes back, which I guess we'll have to wait for the third one, I guess, before I can formally make this complaint. But it looks very different. This is a bigger ship than the last one, and you're kind of going, I kind of feel like they should have had as another mothership. I don't know. Roland Emmerich, and I think this is the biggest problem with the film, is the first one was fine for its scale. This one, they so try to, we need to make everything bigger. It falls into this trap, and it's not something you have to do in Hollywood, where you have to make everything bigger in the sequel. Unfortunately, because everything was so big in the original, you get freaking kaijus in this one, along with a spaceship that is now the size of the Atlantic Ocean, and when it sits on the Earth, and it looks like the Earth is wearing a hat. It's ridiculously sized. This thing is so massive. Like, I think just by it landing on Earth, I'm pretty sure it knocked us out of our regular orbit around the sun. It's ridiculous size. I don't know why they couldn't have had it back to another mothership around that same size. It's just it seemed unnecessarily big. And then again, as I said later, the queen, who has its own. For those of you that forgot, the aliens, instead of wearing clothes, the aliens jump into these biomechanical suits. So, of course, the queen has her own biomechanical suit, but because she is so much larger than the regular aliens, her suit is literally Godzilla size. Not like new Godzilla, more like original Godzilla size. For those of you that don't know, how dare you not know that technically Godzilla has slowly grown in size over the past 50 years as basically buildings in Tokyo got bigger. But so she does that. Then when the aliens come back, first there's a new ship that shows up. Doesn't look like the aliens from before. Humanity decides to blow it up because humanity's took the alien technology and combined it with their own, and it is just basically has been able to rebuild the planet because of this new tech. Sure, okay, and that's kind of the interesting thing I found about this is, okay, we were in an alien invasion. How would, if we had an alien invasion back in '96 and we won and with their technology is left around, how do we progress differently now 20 years later? Because this is supposed to take place in 2016, but it looks like in the not the far future, but it looks like it's in the future. And that's kind of an interesting aspect I liked about this film. Normally you have these invasion films and invasion stories, and you never hear about the real long-term after effects. And this one was kind of fun to be able to do that. But so the aliens come back, and a lot of it's really beat for beat. They really try to recreate a lot of the scenes, even down to there's the scene where, of course, Brent Spiner's character got mind controlled in the original. In a very rushed manner. They do the same scene here, only it's with Bill Pullman. Gets it, and even down to them. Okay, well, it's time to shoot through the glass and hit the alien, all that type of very, very similar plot point by plot point scene, but felt much more rushed. And I think that's why I say with the pacing, destroys this film. Doesn't make it as enjoyable. So anyway, I mentioned that there was an alien that came back. They shot it down. Jeff Goldblum goes up, finds this orb thing. While all this destruction is happening, they happen just to catch a ride and kind of skedaddle with the new mothership that lands on Earth, goes with it. They eventually crack it open, and it's revealed that this orb is actually basically an AI or a race that has shedded its biological form and it's become AI. Only this orb is the last of its kind, but is the great enemy of the invading evil aliens, revealing that it was coming to try to Noah's Ark the human race to this secret resistance planet where it has been able to salvage other races, but it feels like it's too late. But basically Jeff Goldblum, after it kind of briefs them a bit on the alien, comes up with a plan to bait the alien queen out so they can kill it. And of course they kill the queen, they kill basically everything else. All the other aliens locally go catatonic. I'm just tired of the queen thing in a lot of these sci-fi films. It was an interesting concept the first couple times it was done, but now it's become such a trope, even down to the Avengers when they did theirs and Tony Hawk blows up that spaceship, and somehow that just makes all of the other aliens that were attacking just fall down dead. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because they establish in this film, by the way, that there was a 10-year-long guerrilla war being fought in Africa by the surviving aliens from this one ship that actually landed. So those aliens were running around even though there was no queen nearby. I didn't get it. They could have, I think, come up with something better than that. One, I don't like the design of the queen. Now, giant kaiju biosuit queen is one thing, but the actual queen proper she has a mouth, and one of the things that I always liked about the actual aliens in this one is that the aliens didn't have mouths. And I think that was one of the more interesting aspects of their design. But of course, they give the queen a mouth here, and you're just like, why? Just give her no mouth. It would have looked more consistent, because it looks like she's not even like. You look at the xenomorphs from Aliens. The alien queen looks like it is the queen of the alien species, like the drones. So they're like, oh yeah, I could totally see how they're related. This one, not so much. What else I want to get into? A lot of China baiting, as it's now being called. Basically, I see where the movie seems to take a pause for a bit and go, oh, look at this. Hey, Chinese audience, look. We have a character that's Chinese in this film. Oh, isn't China so interesting? It's one of those that's annoying. I know why Hollywood does it. It's part because China restricts the number of Hollywood films it will actually be officially premiered and shown in Chinese theaters. So in order to, you want ours because look, we say good things about you. It's a little too pandering. Kind of annoyingly pandering. I was fine with there being a Chinese pilot. Makes sense because basically Will Smith's son, and I'm using air quotes because it basically they say that Will Smith's character is dead. I've read online. They don't say how in the movie, but online they say that it was that he had died in a test accident, like when he was basically trying out this new human alien hybrid fighter that jets he accidentally crashed and died. Okay, sure. In reality, Will Smith didn't want to do a sequel. So his son's also now a fighter pilot, which I can buy. Although I don't think it was really his son's son. If I'm trying to remember back in the first movie, it's more like a stepson. But okay, I can buy it that, you know what, after I forget when, we don't know exactly when his character died, and he really was probably okay. I can buy he was enough of a father that this kid really did consider, get past the whole stepfather thing. I'm fine with that. It's a very mature thing to actually do for a movie. But the kid though, it's weird because they have him, but they try to make it like he's the main character. Except the movie, you want to go with the Liam Hemsworth, the lesser of the Hemsworths, as he's probably the more hard in the movie. He's probably the best. He does a fine performance. I think the other one is this guy's. What's the actor's name here again? I did have IMDb up. My own fault. But the actor just, I don't know, this doesn't seem to carry the role in this one. There he is. So what's the actor's name? Jesse T. Usher. He's not actual Usher, is he? He's been in some stuff. Nothing really noteworthy as far as I'm concerned. But he just doesn't really carry that role. I don't know if I think the script doesn't even know what it's supposed to do with that role. They just knew they wanted to have that kid's character back. And of course, also speaking of kids of the previous film, or from the previous film, they have not Jeff Goldblum's, but Bill Pullman's, President Whitmore's daughter. And of course, the daughter, even though she's working in the White House, which, okay, she is one of the previous president's daughters. It's like right now, Chelsea Clinton wants to work in the White House. She can get a job in the White House. So I have no problem with that. But later on, they reveal she was also a fighter pilot. And it's like, I mean, I see where you're technically pulling. Oh, because she's the president's daughter, she probably can. She wants to be a fighter pilot. They make her. She becomes a fighter pilot because her father was a fighter pilot. Her father was also the president, so she also can work in the White House when she decides not to be a fighter pilot anymore. They do that so they can tie in how she knows Will Smith's son and Hemsworth, who they make it. Actually, and I kind of like this, so they give a little bit of a Hemsworth's background. Is that he is like this? He's an orphan. He was an orphan from the war, and there's another character in there who's also an orphan. You almost get the impression that, like, after the war, there was all these kids who were orphaned, and like maybe like they kind of like put all these kids into the, like, they put them on a pass so they all join the military. Because you gotta imagine after alien invasion, and they kind of do address in the movie, Earth is a little paranoid that we ain't letting this shit happen again. Like, they're just building these laser gun stuff all over the place. They're starting them in the movie. They're starting to construct. They have them chained around the planet now. So now they're starting to build a bunch on the moon. Which, yeah, that they would. We're invaded. We're almost wiped out by aliens. We have like weapon tech now. Probably for the next century at least. We're gonna be paranoid with. We gotta prepare for another attack. But they do that to justify why she knows Hemsworth character, who she's also the fiance with, and how she knows the Will Smith's son character, even though the two kind of knew each other, obviously, from the events of the first movie. I don't know, it felt like a little unnecessary. I almost kind of wonder, and I have seen Brad Jones's review, so once he said this, I'm like, you know what, that actually makes sense, is if originally Hemsworth's character and the Will Smith son's character, Usher's character here, were originally written as one person, and then at some point they decided to split that off into two. And I'm kind of curious, maybe perhaps that was like they felt, oh, you know what, it's a little too contrived if the two kid characters are now like fiancés in this movie now. Let's have they're friends. Let's introduce another character. Let's have them write more. Oh, Will Smith's not coming. We can split and give that character, I guess, a little bit more importance. That's what it feels like. Who else? Oh, and of course they have Brett Spiner, who we're all fairly certain he was dead in the first one. Turns out he's just in a coma for 20 years, and they also make it weirdly, and what I mean by this is it's how they do this is they heavily hint he's gay after he wakes up, because of course the aliens, certain people are sensitive to the aliens' telekinesis, and of course he's one of them because he had a connection, and as the aliens approach, it wakes him out of a coma. But the gay part is just because of how, like, it would have been, ooh, it's a gay character, like, type, that, like, approach if it was, like, 2002. Not like 2016, where it's like, well, just go flat out and make it just make it gay that him and the other scientist were lovers. But the film doesn't just, like, do that. It's like, I think Roland Emmerich is still stuck in the early 2000s. I don't know. And it's almost like done for comedic effect, where you're like, he can be gay. No one really cares right now. William Fichtner, though, is this. He is a general, although he's later sworn in as president, but it doesn't really change anything with him. So I don't know why they did that. But I do like to see Fichtner Fichtner survived. I was worried they were going to kill him off. Like, he was just going to be one of those generals that get everyone killed. Or, not that he ever gets everyone killed, but, I figured he'd be a throwaway character, but he's actually in there as like the leader, even though I don't know why he becomes president and not Jeff Goldblum's character, because Jeff Goldblum said he's the director of this Earth Space Defense. I forget what exactly they called it, but his Levinson's character is the same character returns. He's some sort of department head, but he's not in the presidential line of succession, which they say in later on, because the presidential bunker is attacked by aliens. That the entire line of presidential succession has been wiped out, and therefore they're just going to swear in the highest ranking officer they can find, which is him. Like, what? I'm just kind of going, wouldn't Goldblum's character probably be that? Unless, like, Goldblum's character is more of an international, like, almost like a head of, like, a UN-esque organization. No. Like I said, they had that. There's another scene that probably could be cut because it really doesn't change much. I mean, maybe I feel like they had 1,000 ideas for this script, and they didn't have enough time to really flesh out anyone's. Because the original film was pretty simple. Aliens attack. We can't defeat them, but we're gonna we do the President Veston escapes to Area 51. We decide to do a modern day analogy to War of the Worlds as a nice little wink with a computer virus. There's not a whole lot of ideals mixed in there. This one they cram. I think that's really the issue. Is they've crammed so much crap in here that you don't have the film doesn't have enough time for all these ideals. And two, the special effects now are rather standard. So where, I don't know, for whatever reason, I mean, I like the design of the ships and stuff. I don't know why the aliens themselves, and by the way, we get to see like alien ground troopers now this time, where they've got like little laser rifles and they're in their biosuits. You have that, but the alien ships look different, both the attackers and like the main mothership. And I don't know why they look different. I mean, unless, and this is what I said, maybe if I said earlier about Voyager Joel's sequel, is, are they implying like each one of these fleets has like its own like design and stuff, which is okay, I can buy that, where you go, well, this is this fleet and mothership and its little subships all have this, they have their own design. This ship has its own design. This group of sub-aliens have their own look, and that I'm fine with. Okay, I can buy that. I don't know why they had to. It would have been nice if, like, even if they just had the alien attackers be the same. I don't know why they had to update them. But at least they do. Humanity has a little bit more of a fight. Like in the first one, until they brought down the shields, even the little attackers were like immune to everything. Here, because we had the tech, we can, when it's dogfights, we can actually kind of, we're fine. We're kind of, the human ships are kind of on par with the alien ships, at least fighter craft. The bigger stuff, though, not so much, and the aliens still have a few tricks up their sleeve. But I don't think I'm going to get into too much more on that. So, if you want a general impression on the film, like I said, it's not as good. If you just want some sort of schlock, it's okay. If you like really want an alien war film, it's okay. You probably have something better on your DVD shelf later on if you want to see this. I know I gave a not so positive review of Warcraft last week. I know this film heavily sequel baits that now we're going to take the fight to the aliens because we have this spear alien here who's going to now, oh, I've got even better tech than what you guys, which I'm kind of going, well, how did your race like essentially lose to these guys then if your tech is so much better? So they were going, and we want you to lead, humans going to lead the resistance. They're going to go on the offensive. So if there's a new Independence Day, I guess we're gonna be the ones wrecking shit. I don't know. Maybe that'll be cool. So even though there's that heavy sequel baiting, at least this one, this part of the story, if there is now going to be a sequel, feels complete. You know, unlike the Warcraft one, which really did feel like there was like, wait, it's over? Because it feels like we should be having like a whole other like 30 to 40 minutes going on here. I can say that. Obviously, we're right in the midst of the holiday of the summer movie season. I know we've got Purge Anarchy coming up. I will probably see that because I enjoyed the. I know it's Purge election year. I was going to say I like that. I liked Purge Anarchy, so I'll probably go and see that. I might go out to the movies later again this week. Maybe see Free State of Jones, or maybe catch The Conjuring 2 because I heard The Conjuring 2 is actually pretty damn good. I might try to do something else video-wise, but I'll wait on that. Sorry for the delay in putting this out. I didn't get in for the movies last night until later, and I of course worked all day today, Friday, and had to make dinner, all that stuff. So I'm recording this literally almost like 24 hours after seeing the movie. So this is, and I don't even know if I'm going to actually upload this tonight. We'll see. But that is it for now. Like, share, all that stuff. Even though maybe I'll be lucky to get one comment on this and like a dozen people watching. Oh well, I don't give a shit. Later.